Next we'll look at cutting foods. Now this is another somewhat difficult skill to learn because again there's so many different things to cut and there's different resistances of the foods. Foods come in different shapes, or even just it's hard to expect to imagine what the food's going to be like when it comes to you, even if you know it's broccoli spears. You know, some people cook broccoli spears so they're very squishy and some are very firm, so it's difficult to anticipate again. So learning to cut a whole variety of foods is really important for kids. I think it's important that if you're teaching a student to cut, again, using a very systematic approach is very helpful to help develop a way to generalize the skills. And we'll demonstrate a few of those techniques. I think it's important that once you find a technique that works and is successful with your child or your student, to make sure that all the people that are teaching them or demonstrating for them are using the same technique, paying particular attention to whether the student is left or right-handed, particularly in cutting because we switch utensils. So it's important that the student learns the same way all the time. So next I want to demonstrate using a knife and fork to cut. We're going to take the fork and locate the piece of meat. Now they're holding the fork in the non-dominant hand. If the person's right-handed, they'd be holding their fork in their left hand. To locate the piece of meat, find the edge of it and slide over a bite-sized amount and pierce it. Then taking your knife in your dominant hand, the hand that requires more skill, that has more skill and requires more skill to use the knife than it does just to stabilize with the fork. That's why we teach it that way. You take the knife, find the cutting edge of the knife either on the side of the plate or the fork. Then slide down the back of the fork and saw back and forth until you get to the plate. And then once you've gotten that piece cut, you're going to reach the knife under the fork to hold the meat stable, while the fork then jumps over the knife, roughly a bite-sized amount, and then that you can repeat it, sliding down the back of the fork and sawing back and forth. So if you notice while you're eating that one piece is maybe a little bit too big, you can put the piece of meat back down, switch hands so you're holding the fork with your left hand again, pick up your knife, slide down the back of the fork, and that should be enough to cut the piece into a smaller bite-sized piece. Using Dicem underneath the plate can help. This blue mat underneath the plate can help to keep the plate from sliding around when a student's first learning to learn how to modulate the force when sawing back and forth without sliding the plate all over the table. Okay, so now we're going to demonstrate a method for cutting spaghetti. Spaghetti is generally very, very messy and very difficult to eat, but kids love it. So this is a way that kids can be a little bit more successful with spaghetti. If you take your fork and knife in each hand, and you're going to begin in the far part of your plate. I would say the front or the back, but that's sometimes confusing. So the part of the plate that's farthest away from you. You're going to cross your knife and fork together and pinch the ends as you squeeze and pull them apart. You're going to repeat that all the way across the plate towards you. And when you get to the part that's closest to you, you're going to place your left hand and your right hand on the sides of the plate and turn the plate so that your right hand's at the top and your left hand's at the bottom of the plate. That's a quarter turn. And then you're going to repeat that again. So starting at the far end of the plate, pinch your utensils together as you drag them across the plate. Now you should have a roughly bite-sized amount that will stay on the fork.